Om, Om, Om. Which drive system is better for my motorcycle? Om, chain, Om, shaft, Om. What about the belt? Doesn't it have some sort of advantage here as well? Today on Rod Rides and Wrenches, we strive to find the best final drive system for your motorcycle and mine. As far as I know, the first originally powered bicycle was built in 1869 by Pierre and his son Ernest Marchot. It used a leather strap to harness the power of the engine and transfer it to the rear wheel. The leather belt, or twisted rawhide strap, was the mainstay for over 30 years of motorcycling, even though chains had started to be widely accepted as a reasonable way to transfer power on two-wheeled machines as early as 1885. It was this year that the first strictly human-powered Rover safety bicycle manufactured by Starling and Sutton was introduced. It was called the safety bicycle not because it had a chain, but rather you didn't sit high over top the front wheel, which was the style of the day with penny farthing bicycles. So you can probably figure out why this safety bicycle caught on. And Starling and Sutton even went on to manufacture some motorcycles of the day, but they found more success with the Land Rover Automobile Company. The first known use of a chain on a motorcycle was by the Indian Motorcycle Company of Springfield. No, not that Springfield. This one. It was back in 1902. There were a recorded 377 1902 Indian motorcycles built with that chain drive system. This while Bill Harley and the Davidson brothers were still building one-off machines in their garages of all places at less than 10 per year. By the time Harley-Davidson had manufactured their 40th motorcycle in 1906, Indian Motorcycles had produced somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,600 motorcycles. Not bad for a startup company that was breaking a lot of new technological ground. The first known use of the shaft motorcycle... Wait, were you going to say BMW? Because you'd be wrong. The first time the motorcycle got the shaft was in 1902 as well. This coincided with the chain drive system. The bike was made by Belgian arms and munitions manufacturer called Fabrique Nationale de Herstal. Now I probably screwed that up, but we'll use the company's popular monogram instead, FN. The FN bike was a 132cc single that used a chain and pedals to both start the engine and as a supplemental drive to the rear wheel, while a shaft provided power from the engine to a simplified rear final drive. The power delivery was so robust, FN was one of the first to up the power game and move to a 362cc inline 4-cylinder and then a 412cc inline 4 as early as 1907. Now, a couple of years before the First World War in 1915, FN was selling a 750cc inline 4 that I believe inspired both the Ace Motorcycle Manufacturing Company, which was later bought out by Indian Motorcycles for its ingenious use of the 4-cylinder inline engine, and then BMW with their inline 4, and of course the BMW shaft drive. FN stopped producing motorcycles and mopeds in 1967, but still make a number of popular weapons for military and personal applications, so I guess there's really no reason here to try to follow the money. It's difficult for me to spend a whole lot of time on the belt drive, partly because I don't currently have one in my stable, and secondly, after owning and riding numerous Harley-Davidsons and modern Indian motorcycles, I've even owned a BMW with a belt drive system. I can tell you they're okay. Remember, the belt drive was the original drive system for motorcycles, and to this day it's more efficient at transferring power than the shaft, smoother and quieter than the chain, and doesn't require any lube or dressing, so it's pretty much maintenance-free. Belts also last a very long time. Infused with aramid strands, it's not impossible to get close to 160,000 kilometers on a modern motorcycle belt. The other thing that most belt naysayers aren't aware of, even if you pick up a sharp rock in your belt, you can just let it sit there until it wears away or even passes all the way through the belt without any adverse effects to belt life or performance of that belt, providing, of course, that it hasn't cut the edge of the belt. Once the edge is cut, belts start to get frayed, but otherwise they're very reliable. Now, I've seen 88 cubic inch Harley riders make it all the way back to the shop on long touring trips with less than half the width of their original belt still intact. The other half being sacrificed to the motorcycle gods. Belts, however, require big wide pulleys with limited gearing options and large spacing requirements for those big pulleys at the wheel and, of course, at the engine. And belts are the worst to change of the final drive systems, often requiring the swing arm, and in the case of the most commonly used belt drive system, American V-twins, they require the removal of the primary drive. Belts, also being less resilient to torque load than chain or shaft, can't handle the high horsepower applications of performance internal combustion engines. So the belt is, well, okay. It does some things better or worse than the chain or the shaft. What the strongest feature is of the belt, which the same thing could be said for the chain, is that based on most motorcycle applications where the crankshaft is rotating in line with the rotation of the wheel, like say on a V-twin or a parallel twin, the belt final drive doesn't disturb or counteract the angular momentum and centrifugal forces being applied to the motorcycle by the engine or wheels. Look, everyone knows that once you start rotating a wheel, it's going to want to rotate in that direction and stay in line. And once your motorcycle is up to speed, it no longer needs your input to stay upright. This is centrifugal force at work, along with some other physics like caster effect and angular momentum. The belt and chain drive, due to its inherent design, is also rotating in the same direction as everything else, so no forces are counteracting the motorcycle's natural physics that want to keep it upright and moving straight. On engines like the BMW R flat twin, the opposed V-twin of, say, a Moto Guzzi, inline 3-cylinders of the Triumph Rocket 3, and the Honda ST1300 opposed V4 all get away with using a shaft for a final drive because the bike already has rotating mass perpendicular to the rotation of the wheels and the direction of the bike. This is where a properly designed shaft drive really struts its stuff. The drive shaft is rotating in the opposite direction to the opposed engine crankshaft in almost all applications. This is why when a motorcycle with an opposed engine is sitting still, you can rev the throttle and literally feel the centripetal forces, not centrifugal, which are two separate terms, want to twist the bike on its side. While in motion and by rotating the drive shaft in the opposite direction, a large amount of centripetal force is canceled out. Now, I'm not a physics major, but if somebody else has a better explanation to what I just said, please feel free to write it in the comments below and submit it along with your thesis and, of course, your academic credentials. While you're at it, please do me a favor and click on the subscribe button. Stats show that the majority of you watching this video have watched a few of my videos, but still haven't subscribed yet to Rod, Rides, and Wrenches. The big question is, why? No! It's not going to get any cheaper to subscribe to our channel, where you're going to find maintenance videos and tech videos on a variety of different motorcycles, as well as reviews on bikes and even riding gear. All this for the almost absolutely free to you, the viewer, one-time low price of clicking that subscribe button. You can do it! Sounds like a super deal, and your subs are very important to me personally. The benefits of the shaft drive are many. They're low maintenance. Now, that's not to be confused with maintenance free. They run clean, are pretty much impervious to rain and dirt. Best of all, drive shafts, for the most part, are designed to last the life of the bike with reasonable maintenance and care. The disadvantage of the drive shaft is that they're expensive to build. They weigh a lot on a machine that is supposed to be held up by your leg. The other major issue with weight when it comes to the drive shaft is that the drive shaft and final drive unit are below the pivot point of the suspension system, making this weight unsprung weight. Unsprung weight adversely affects the motorcycle's handling, as the force this mass produces against the chassis is typically double the static weight. So the heavier the unsprung weight is on a motorcycle, the more impact it has on the chassis when it changes directions. Hence, this is why you want to have a lighter wheel on a sport bike not a heavier one. Also, when you change the direction of your power by 90 degrees, you lose some of that power. The 90-degree turn of power at the drive shaft zaps some of the engine's torque and horsepower. This is why typically you'll only see shaft drive on large displacement bikes where there is sufficient torque to make the loss of power less noticeable, and where the additional weight is of little consequence since the bike already weighs in the neighborhood of 300 kilos or 600 pounds and even more. The other drawbacks included is very, very difficult, if not extremely impossible, to make any sort of gearing changes. Not a big deal on a touring bike, but on an adventure bike or an enduro, this is a pretty big deal. Finally, we come to the chain. The easiest to manufacture and install makes them cost-effective both on the assembly line and in the garage. Chains and sprockets offer a multitude of gearing choices, so they work with pretty much any size motorcycle. The components themselves are lightweight, so the impact on your bike's unsprung mass is minimal. They rotate in the same direction as your wheels, so for most single and inline sport bike engines, this means they're in perfect harmony with the centrifugal forces that keep the bike stable at high speeds. Chains and sprockets can also be beefed up for huge torque loads that would shred belts off their pulleys. Now, chains do require regular cleaning and lubrication, but advancements in O-ring and X-ring chains have extended these intervals and prolonged the life of most of these chains. The best way to care for your chain is to clean it a few times a year and lube the sprockets and rollers every 1,000 kilometers or after you wash the bike, whichever occurs first. They can be messy, noisy, and give a lot of negative feedback to the rider when they're worn out or loose. If your chain breaks while you're riding at speed, it can damage not just your engine, but you and the people around you. So best to keep them in good shape and replace them when they wear. A hassle for sure, but I would rather change 3 sets of chains and sprockets than lube 1 drive shaft spline. So which is better? Chain? Shaft? Pulley? Well, it really depends on you and what you're riding. Belts are fine and would be my preference for a cruiser. Shafts are great for touring bikes that are eating up miles in a variety of road conditions. And chains are for performance, both on and especially off-road, where gearing selection can make a huge impact on your ride. Also, chains are great for small displacement bikes, where weight needs to be considered, both sprung and unsprung weight. So you have to ultimately decide the winner when it comes to final drive systems in your own garage. Each has a purpose and a place that are best suited to them. I will be back next week with more from the wonderful world of motorcycling. So until then, I just want to say thanks for liking and subscribing, and be sure to ride safe.